It's 10 o'clock in Dublin City. Good morning. This is Adrian Kennedy. Welcome to 98FM's Dublin Talks. On the show this morning, it's our national language, but should compulsory Irish be scrapped as a Leaving Cert subject? If you've a loved one buried in a graveyard, do you ever visit? We'll be trying to settle a family row. And if you're Irish living abroad or a foreigner living here, what makes you homesick?
The sound of the city. 98FM's Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy.
Well, good morning, Tuesday morning, and how's everything with you today? Come here, I've read a bit of disappointing news today, and I'd like to get your opinions on this, because this is becoming a thing where the Gardaí are stopping people drinking outside pubs. And today, I read in the Herald newspaper that one of Dublin's most famous pubs has been told by Gardaí not to allow anyone to take a drink or food outside its premises. And the pub that we're referring to is Kavanagh's in Glasnevin, more commonly known to you and I as the Gravediggers. Now, for any of you who've ever been there, particularly after, let's say, a Dublin match in Croke Park, which we'll be having over the next week or two, in fact, in 2 weeks, or is it 3 weeks, when we have the semi-final, which Dublin will be in, you will no longer be able to stroll on up the Whitworth Road up to the Gravediggers and have a pint outside, which I think is just ridiculous. Because I don't know about you. Now, maybe you live in the area and it's a big problem for you, but I can't see that it is. The pub has now decided, well, the Gardaí have told the pub that the law is there and that the practice of allowing people to have a pint outside the pub is coming to an end. Here's what the owners say. There is a law that we cannot have anyone outside drinking. We'll be obeying the guards, and that's all there is to be said about it. Oh. Now, I read that Noel Rock TD said it's a great pity and a loss for Dublin. The venue, in my experience at Noel Rock, is very attentive to the appearance of the locality, ensuring the area is well maintained and thoroughly cleaned and making sure people aren't outside beyond a certain hour, which is all grand. And any time I've ever been at the Gravediggers having a pint outside, it's been very relaxed, very chilled, no hassle, no loud voices, and the pub itself has always stopped people drinking outside after a certain hour. And I also go for a pint after the matches in McGrath's in Drumcondra. And I noticed this year that they've stopped people outside drinking. In fact, they did it last year as well. They have stopped people outside drinking in the little side street at the side of McGrath's. What was the name of that street? Oh, Grattan Parade. And they've stopped people drinking outside that bar as well. And again, I never saw anything that would warrant the Gardaí stopping it. And okay, drinking in public in Dublin may be against the law, but let me do a quick poll on this. Do you support the Gardaí clamping down on drinking outside bars like the Gravediggers, like McGrath's and Drumcondra, and perhaps the next place to be affected will be the Barge, for example, where, as you know, as soon as the sun comes out, people congregate around the Barge, they sit on the canal locks and they have a bit of fun. And again, I've never known of anything to kick off or any hassle. So what I want you to do now is text me yes or no to 0877 98 98 98. Do you support the Gardaí clamping down on drinking outside of pubs? Like the Gravediggers, like McGrath's and Drumcondra, and that's just an example I'm using because I'm familiar with it. I go there after the Dublin matches. We stroll up from Croker, head into McGrath's, have a couple of pints and head off home. And it used to be very pleasant standing outside when it was nice weather, but that is now gone. I assume for the same reason. I assume the Gardaí have told the owners of McGrath's that they can't do it, and they've told the owners of the Gravediggers they can't do it. But are they right? Or should they give a little bit of leeway? Text or WhatsApp to 0877 98 98 98. 0877 98 98 98. Are the Gardaí right to be clamping down on drinking outside of pubs? And here's the thing. If they're doing it to places like the Gravediggers, which it's been that way for years. After a match, you stroll on up to the Gravediggers. Not everybody does, but a lot of people do. Have a couple of pints outside after the match. The kids are outside on the green, and it's all grand. But now they've stopped it. And if they've done it to that bar, if they've done it to McGrath's and Drumcondra, they're going to have to do it everywhere else in order to make it fair. So that will see an end to drinking outside places like the Barge. Do you support the Gardaí doing this, or do you think it's ridiculous that they have clamped down on it in that way? Call me right now on 6797 981. Text, WhatsApp, or send a WhatsApp voice note to 0877 98 98 98. 0877 98 98 98. Do you support that decision by the Gardaí? And looking at the messages coming in, I think a lot of people don't support the Gardaí. Let me read this message that's just come in to us, and it says, I live in Ballybock, and the Gardaí let people walk up the road with cans and bottles, so I hope they enforce the law on everyone. They pick and choose what laws they enforce. And I kind of agree with that. You see, my whole thing has always been, especially on a match day, what harm is anybody causing having a pint? I've never ever seen as much as a crossword outside any of the pubs that I've mentioned. Now, maybe I just haven't seen as much as a crossword outside any of those pubs. Maybe it is a thing, but I've never known of antisocial behaviour. It all seems to be very relaxed and whatever. And yeah, I don't get it. So I asked you to text me and let me know whether or not you support this decision by the guards. And 90% of you said no. So there. Yeah. Now it is the law, and I know the Gardaí are only enforcing the law, and drinking in public is not allowed by law. But I have always thought outside a pub like that is kind of controlled. I don't agree with people walking up and down the street with cans of beer in their hand. I think that's what the Gardaí should be enforcing, not outside places like the Gravediggers. And somebody else texted in to say, what about Temple Bar? Are they going to stop it as well? Maybe they will have to. It would seem a little bit unfair that they'd enforce it in one part of the city and not in others. So there you go. Anyway, that's my little rant for today. This is, actually, let me just squeeze in a quick call about this. Darren, you're on 98 FM. How are you, Darren?
Adrian, how's it going? What about Temple Bar?
Yeah, no, that was the point. I just read out your message a second ago, because a lot of the bars in Temple Bar do allow people have a pint outside, but they seem to be kind of cordoned off areas in most of Temple Bar, are they not?
No, it's still out on the main street where cars and taxis are going by every day, every weekend it's the same.
Right, so if they're going to enforce it at the Gravediggers or McGrath's in Drumcondra, then they should be doing it in Temple Bar as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Do you think they should enforce it in Temple Bar?
Yeah, they should do. It's a health and safety reason as well. Cars are going down, people are...
In fact, if you think about it logically, it's more of a health and safety issue in Temple Bar than it will be up at the Gravediggers, where there's where there's no cars driving around.
Exactly, yeah.
Do you think they're wrong to be enforcing it in somewhere like the Gravediggers?
They are wrong. You say you go to a Dublin match.
Yeah.
I haven't been one in years. But again, people go out there to enjoy it. After the match, few points, have it off, talk about the match,
yep.
And then that's it.
And then that's it, yeah. Head off home.
There's any trouble there. If you go to Temple Bar or anywhere around City Centre, there's always trouble because people are drunk outside the pub.
Okay, so you think if anywhere they're going to enforce the not drinking in public, it should be Temple Bar rather than pubs like the Gravediggers?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
All right. Thomas, your point is about smokers.
Yeah. That's it. How are we going to do it in country pubs?
You see, in a lot of places, they will now let you can go outside and have a smoke, but you can't bring your pint with you.
Yeah.
And I know that's the way in an awful lot of pubs around town now. So you'll still be able to go and have your smoke, you just won't be able to bring your pint with you.
Yeah, or plastic cups.
Yeah, but I hate plastic cups.
Bring that.
No, you won't be able to bring alcohol out on the street.
Yeah.
But you'll still be able to go and have your smoke. Bobby, your point is that you see somewhere like the Gravediggers as an easy target.
Absolutely, yeah, of course it is. I mean, when would you ever hear of any trouble outside the Gravediggers?
I've never heard of it. I've never ever because had there been trouble ever outside the Gravediggers, this would have been dealt with a long time ago. I have never.
This is just some nosy neighbour with a pain in his arse. The people having a good time outside his house or whatever. That's all that is.
And probably somebody who just moved in recently who wasn't used to it or
probably
whatever.
someone that doesn't drink. The usual bored and feckers, you know what I mean?
Okay, but the green outside the Gravediggers isn't theirs. It's public property. And
yeah, I know. Well, actually, the Gravediggers, the lounge of the Gravediggers was my granny's house years ago.
Right. Okay.
Oh, I know. Well.
Right. And okay.
Also, the guards are picking easy targets. Send them up to Clondalkin or Finglas or the butt end of, I don't know, Neiltown, and see will they ask the people to go inside not drinking. They will in their arse. They know what to be told.
Okay, so well, stay there for 1 second. Let me just have a listen to this message from Jake, who's delighted with this news.
I am absolutely delighted. Like, you go by the barge and like it's embarrassing the amount of people out drinking. Irish people, foreign people, every type. And then people say that other things are the gateway drug. Let's be honest. Alcohol is the gateway drug. What's the first drug everyone tries? Alcohol. Alcohol. Shoved down your throat in this country. I'm fed up with it. I'm absolutely delighted. Why do you need to have a pint after a Dublin match?
Okay, I mean, the conversation about alcohol being a gateway drug is a conversation for another day. Why do you have to have a pint? You don't have to have a pint. That's the simple answer. You don't have to, but you might want to. And I certainly wouldn't apologise for liking having a pint after going to the match in Croker, be that in Drumcondra or go into the city centre or head up to the Gravediggers or wherever. I make no apologies for enjoying a pint after the match. And I don't think anybody should have to. But the point is, Bobby, he says he's delighted. Now, by the way, this hasn't been enforced, to the best of my knowledge, at the barge yet, but I should imagine that it's only a matter of time before it will be. What do you say?
Doesn't he sound? He sounds like the person that love to be stuck at a party now talking something, wouldn't you? Drink alcohol, the shame of everything. God, shy.
Right, stay there for a second. Ken, you're on 98 FM. How are you, Ken?
How's it going, Adrian?
Good, Ken. Tell me about the ferryman.
Yeah, I'd say I don't have an issue with the likes of...
Actually, you just reminded me of another place, the ferryman. Yeah, it's another... Yeah, go on anyway.
Yeah, the likes of the Gravediggers and the bars, that like they're places where you can actually... You're not affecting anybody, but the ferryman there did a night on a Friday night, right outside the door. It's on the corner there, just down from Cardiff Lane.
Yep, I know it well.
And people had to walk out onto the road to get by. Now, that's a bit stupid. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because it is a bit of a bottleneck there, and the footpath isn't exactly monstrous outside the ferryman now, to be honest. But they do have they have beer kegs as tables outside. They usually have a few bar stools, but on a nice evening, people will be standing outside the pub.
And I know it's difficult to have one rule for one and one rule for everybody else, but I know I've been down the Gravediggers many times and drank out there at grand. But
do you think, as Bobby said, they were an easy target?
Probably an easy target, absolutely, yeah.
Now, the ferrymen the Gravediggers themselves said, there's a law stating that we cannot have anyone outside drinking. We'll be obeying the guards, and that's all there is to be said about it. Which I know for an awful lot of people, and I would worry about that as a business as well, that if you're at a match... and it's a nice evening and you're strolling on home, you will go in there for a pint because you can stand outside, but people may not go anymore because they don't want to be sitting inside on a nice day like that, if you're having a nice day.
If the likes of the Gravediggers, it's controlled. There's no traffic going by.
No. People
walk around. The same with the barge. There's another one just around the corner from where you are there. Do you know when you're going around by the Westin Hotel?
Oh, yes, yeah.
There's a venue there, but like there's weddings on. There's people standing out on the road. You can't get by them. you have to walk on the street to get by them.
Okay, so where it comes to somewhere like the Ferryman, you think that it'd be more appropriate that the guards enforce the law there than outside the Gravediggers?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no,
it was like people are going to Crow Park to watch a match. It's a sunny day. They're going to have a point on the way down, a point on the way back. Like, there's no harm in that. They're not there for the whole evening having a session. They're having a point on the way. And whereas, as I just said to you, Friday evening, all is going to happen is someone's going to step out onto the street because they can't.
Yeah, no, I've seen the Ferryman on a very busy evening, on a very when it's a nice sunny evening, and it does get crowded outside. It does, and it is a bit of a because you're literally standing on a main, very busy road.
Yeah.
All right, Ken. Robbie says the guards need to focus on real
Adrian,
issues.
You head down to the Galway races this week, and I guarantee you, when you go into Ayr Square, the place will be absolutely flooded with people out drinking on the street, and it's not a problem. Never any trouble. People having the crack, having a laugh. Just another thing that the guards up here are making up so they have something to do instead of dealing with real things. Yeah,
no, I just wonder, what was the motivation from the Gardaí to enforce the law at the Gravediggers? I assume, I could be wrong, but I assume nothing has happened in terms of an antisocial issue around the Gravediggers. Maybe I'm wrong. James, tell me about swords.
It's not bad. It's just like rights on a Friday evening or a Saturday evening. They're all outside as well.
But rights, that's what I was about to say. Rights have a cordoned off area at the front.
It's still a footpath. It's not a part of rights. Do you know what I mean? But if you have to do it for one, you should be doing it for the whole lot.
And that would mean not even allowing people outside a bar in a cordoned off area?
No.
Do you think
if they're going to do it, they're going to have... No, I have no problem with it either. Like, it's grand going outside to have a few points for God's sake in a lovely evening. Like, yeah. They're going to do it for one, you have to do it for everyone.
And I would agree. Yeah, that's my point on this, that they're going to have to start enforcing it at places, just the examples that we've had, and there are many others, the Ferryman or the barge or whatever. If they're picking on somewhere like the Gravediggers, then they're going to have to do it everywhere.
They're going to have to do it everywhere. And they can't just stop at one pub and say, no, just don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And obviously, as one of the or somebody said there a few minutes ago, it's obviously down to a new neighbour or else a nosy neighbour that just sort of got fed up with it all.
Yeah.
There could be enough. Like, the likes of where the pubs are as well, and house close with people with either new kids after coming in or they're going to urinating in the garden that they don't want to see anymore.
But again,
another reason again.
Yeah, it could be, and I'd love to find out if somebody did complain. But I've never seen anything as much as a crossword or any antisocial behaviour or anyone having a wee outside the Gravediggers, for example. I've just never seen it.
Yeah, well, I've never drank in it myself now. I've never gone in after any Dublin games or anything like that. So I've no idea. But that's the only thing I can think of that it could be. But some nosy neighbour or else new neighbours after moving in, young kids, just don't want to see it happen inside the house.
All right, James, thanks very much indeed. And finally, Dermot says there is too much drink around the stadiums.
Adrian, I think they should ban the smoking outside the pubs at the stadiums, especially. I bring my daughters to Croke Park regularly, and it's not a drinking session. Maybe it is for some people, but it shouldn't be in people's faces, especially young families. Like, there's just, people going around drinking pints even in the stadium. I think it's wrong. Maybe I'm an old battle axe or something, but I just think it's wrong. Dermot here, thank you.
All right, Dermot, thank you very much indeed. And finally, a message that's just come into us, and it says, if you went to a restaurant and it was full, you wouldn't stand outside. You'd go elsewhere. Why is a public house any different? Yeah, okay, all right. So no more having a pint outside the Gravediggers. It's now a thing of the past. This is 98FM's Dublin Talks. I'm Adrian Kennedy. It is Tuesday morning. Now, on the way after the break, I want to talk to you about the Irish language and a new report today that is saying that Irish perhaps shouldn't be a compulsory Leaving Cert subject. We want to get your opinions on that in a couple of minutes.
Dublin Talks with Buy Local. because smarter shopping supports us all. 98FM.
And this is Adrian Kennedy with you until midday. Should Irish stay as a compulsory subject for the Leaving Cert? You may have heard on the news earlier on that a major review of the Leaving Cert is taking place at the moment, and students, parents and teachers have all been consulted. One of the big talking points to come out of the review is that many students think Irish should be an optional Leaving Cert subject rather than a compulsory Leaving Cert subject. Some students highlighted the importance of retaining at least some exposure to the language during the course of the review. However, they want to focus on more of the oral element of the language rather than the memorisation of material. And let's get you to text in again and answer this question for me. Do you think Irish should be a compulsory Leaving Cert subject? Yes or no? And send your text or WhatsApp to 0877 98 98 98. I'd be interested to find out how people feel about this. This has been an age-old argument. Some people feel that, aren't you better off learning French or Spanish or German or Chinese even than the Irish language, which is used just on this island and not even used that much? So here's the question once again. Should Irish remain a compulsory Leaving Cert subject? Text yes or no to 0877 98 98 98. Joining me on the line now is Julian Despawn from Conradh na Gaeilge. Julian, let me ask you firstly, were you surprised to hear that many students involved in this review would like to see Irish made an optional subject?
Not really, in the sense that I suppose it doesn't really quantify how many students, and we know from all reports done before this that the vast majority of people in that age cohort are behind Irish being a core Leaving Cert subject. But I suppose really what doesn't surprise me for these students is that they're at the end of a system which I would say is not fit for purpose. And if we really want to change people's attitudes, if we want to give them the Irish that they should have at the end of the system, then we need to look at it from day one, from preschool to university. Let's have one policy for the teaching of Irish. We've never had it since the foundation of the state. Why have we never thought, well, look, let's join the dots. What you learn in preschool to primary school to secondary school onto university, let's join them all together.
Okay, so this is the age-old argument that Irish isn't being taught properly.
Well, partly, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put the blame on the teachers, obviously. I think the system isn't catering for them. For example, something they're going to be trialling in September, which could have very good effects in the future, is that they're going to be teaching other subjects through Irish. They're doing a pilot course where they're going to do PE with 20 schools in September. And what we've seen is, we already know because a local voluntary group did it in Cork called Gaeltacha with 20 schools, and it's amazing the change in attitudes of the students. They're enjoying the language, they're using the language, so they're communicating, which is what we should be doing in the language.
Okay, so that's one of the issues that we have, that children are learning it, but then not actually using it. And that has always been one of the arguments against it being a compulsory subject.
Yeah, but I think you find more and more young people have started to use the language, or they're finding more opportunities to use it. For example, you can Facebook, there's Gmail, there's Twitter, there's all these different things that are available now through Irish. In third level colleges, some of the biggest societies now in third level colleges are the Irish language societies. Why? Because I think more and more the world is becoming a smaller place with travel, with the internet, and people are looking what helps to identify them, and Irish is part of that mix. So giving them more opportunities to use the language to communicate with each other can only be a good thing. Just look at the Irish summer colleges. That's what they do. They immerse the students in the language. Surely we could do that partly in the schools as well.
Okay, now only earlier on today I was talking to a parent whose child is about to start school who said he would much rather his child learn French or Spanish or German rather than wasting 14 years learning Irish.
Well, it's not a waste. One thing I'd say to your friend is that first thing is that when you learn a language, when you learn Irish, for example, and you have English already, it becomes easier to learn a third language as well. And that's more what we're pushing for, is that you have these transferable skills that the students will be learning. And the second thing is that there's a huge host of opportunities for employment in the Irish language. It's not only the traditional, which we'll have always be seen with teaching and the media in the past, they're also looking for doctors and nurses and accountants, etc., etc. If you're Irish, you can use Irish as one of the recognised languages in the European Union if you want to get a job over there. So there's a huge host of opportunities now for using the language, and I think very much what we're missing in the schools as well is an awareness course of why we learn not only Irish but languages in general, because language learning is hard. And if in a Leaving Cert context you have a choice between a hard subject and an easy subject or an easier perceived subject, obviously the student will go for that.
Okay, but one of the arguments in favour of removing Irish as a compulsory Leaving Cert subject is that you can concentrate on other languages that you may use in your later life, which perhaps Irish you won't.
You'll find more and more that especially adults will always come to me and say, well, actually, I would have loved to learn Irish better. I'd love to use Irish now with my children. You'll find that, a higher appreciation, I suppose, when you're looking around you, when you look at place names all around you in Ireland, they're all based on the Irish, and it's great to be able to work out, because you have Irish, exactly where they're coming from.
What would it do to the language if it was removed as a compulsory subject for the Leaving Cert, do you think?
Well, we only have to look at our nearest neighbours in England. They got rid of language learning for GCSE in 2001, and the rates of students learning languages has fallen to about 40%. And in that 40%, vast majority is of schools, the higher class schools, the fee-paying schools, because they realised the value of learning languages, that they've continued and kept it compulsory. So it will be devastation in terms, because if you had a student who wants to be a doctor, for example, and they in the school then had a choice between biology or Irish, and they want to become a doctor, well, they have to choose biology and they can no longer learn Irish. So it will be devastating. I think that we've be very careful. But I think we need to take a step back and say, well, look, let's change the way Irish is taught. They never do that. They never fix the problem. It's more about, well, let's throw the baby out of the bathwater. But actually think, well, let's solve the problem. Like they did with maths, Project Maths. They brought in Project Maths to change that.
Finally, Julian, Irish as a language, is it more popular now than ever, or is it still waning?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's more popular than ever. We can see amongst young people especially, obviously there's huge problems in the Irish-speaking areas in the Gaeltacht, especially, partly because of, the depopulation, and there needs to be sports there, needs to be employment opportunities there. But in general, outside of that, as they say, third-level colleges, the biggest societies now, and the use of Irish on the internet is something else. And can I also say the Love Island winner from Limerick there now last night?
Did speak a couple of focal, all right.
Yeah. So,
all right, Julian Despon from Conor Gaeilge, thank you very much indeed for talking to us on 98 FM. And I'd love to hear from you on 6797 981. You can text, WhatsApp, or send a WhatsApp voice note to 0877 98 98 98. Ever since I was a kid, it's a conversation that we have had about the Irish language, about the value of learning it, about the need to spend so many hours during your school years learning a language. And this is the argument that a lot of people put forward, a language that you will probably not use much in your later life. Where if you were to become fluent and expert in French or German or Spanish or Mandarin or whatever, you're more likely to have an opportunity to use it. Should Irish be scrapped as a compulsory Leaving Cert subject? Not scrapped as a subject and be compulsory up to your junior cert, but should it be scrapped as a compulsory Leaving Cert subject? Call me right now on 6797 981. Text, WhatsApp, or send a WhatsApp voice note to 0877 98 98 98. Quaylen, you're on 98 FM. How are you?
Not so bad.
Quaylen, you think it's ridiculous that we're even having this conversation?
Yeah, I think it's mad. I think it's there's such a worth to the language. It's such a big part of our culture and that. And I think it would be mad to get rid of it as a core subject.
For the leaving?
For the leaving, of course, yeah. I think if it's our aim that people should be fluent in Irish after the school system, that we should be looking at having Irish right from the very start in the primary schools and the mainry, right through to after the art test.
Okay, now the learning of Irish has always been an issue in terms of the way it's taught and everything else. How do you think it can be improved? Because one of the difficulties with the Irish language is that it doesn't, especially here in Dublin, it doesn't have widespread usage when you walk outside the classroom door.
Yeah, well, I mean, geez, anything that we can do to improve the sort of the social usage of the language. I mean, as well, you know, when we're talking about the school system, the sort of level that it's being taught at, I think it's mad that when we're doing the Leaving Cert and we do English and we have all these different poets with, you know, 6-7 poems per poet, and then you do Irish and there's only 5 poems, or there's only short stories, there's no novels, or that when you're doing novels in English, especially for people coming from the Gaeltacht, you know, I'm from the Gaeltacht myself, and I was doing novels when I was in primary school, but then that was gone by the time we got to secondary school because of the focus on the curriculum.
Is it just for historic reasons or as part of our national identity that we learn this language? In other words, does it have any practical use in your life? Because let's face it, whether we like it or not, Caolan, Irish is never going to become the most spoken language in this country. No,
I don't think the aim is that we ever become a monolingual Irish-speaking country. I mean, you know, we're in the modern world. We should be looking to have 2, 3, 4 languages if we can. Our European neighbours are a great example as to that. But no, I personally think we should be aiming that everyone should have 2, 3 languages. English and Irish should be definitely amongst them. It's cultural, surely. I mean, having Irish is one of the things that sets us apart from other countries. I mean, you know, if we speak English, you know, and nothing else, you know, there's not an awful lot setting us apart from our neighbours over in Britain. So it's good that we have the Irish language like that.
I know, but one of the things that has always been argued is that when, for example, the UK leaves the European Union in a couple of weeks, Ireland will be the only English-speaking nation in the whole of the European Union, which is a good thing for us.
Well, I mean, our language, our official language in the EU is Irish.
No, I'm aware of that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a thing. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Okay, but stay there for 1 second. Let me play this WhatsApp voice note from Lizzie, who says Irish should stay, but they should change the way they teach it.
One of the things I love about the Irish language is that when you know a bit of it and you go abroad, you're able to speak it like with your friends or family. Everyone kind of recognises like a German, Spanish, French, Italian even kind of language, but very few people recognise the Irish language. It's almost like you're talking in secret code. So I really don't think they should scrap it at all. I think how it's taught needs to be different. And I also think like our understanding of general grammar of English needs to be different, because if we don't understand the basic English language and we're just taught naturally to speak it, then you're not going to be able to understand when your teacher's trying to teach you the Mohanilach. Like, I didn't even know what that was in English, never mind in Irish. So maybe it just needs to be retaught or revamped in how it's taught. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on it, my cúpla focal on it.
Thank you, Lizzie. I don't know if the bit of fun you might have on holidays with family and friends talking Oscuelga is a good enough reason to keep it as a Leaving Cert compulsory subject. And I know an awful lot of people do enjoy that bit of fun when you're away, speaking Oscuelga. Some people just say Pogue Mahone, and that's as far as they can go, and think it's hilarious that nobody else understands what you're saying. But it's hardly a reason to keep the language going, is it? Irish should be kept compulsory, says Shelley in this message. I get so annoyed at people who say it should be choice, because if you have a choice, the majority will not do it and eventually it'll dwindle out. It's laziness from both kids and parents, and people should remember just over 100 years ago, people risked being arrested to try to teach Irish in hedge schools. We really need to cop on and be proud that we actually have a language that we can freely teach. Lots of interest in this. Steve and Robbie, I'll take your calls straight after the break.
Dublin Talks with Buy Local, because smarter shopping supports us all. 98FM.
Good morning from Adrian Kennedy. And did you hear about the report earlier on today? This is a major review of the Leaving Cert, which is taking place at the moment. And students and parents and teachers are all throwing their tuppence worth in. And one of the big talking points to come from this review is that many students think Irish should be an optional subject for Leaving Cert. An optional subject. You shouldn't have to take Irish in your Leaving Cert. Now, there was a time that you'd fail your Leaving Cert if you didn't pass your Irish. That's no longer the case. But should it remain a compulsory Leaving Cert subject? Now, Jessica, you have lived in many other countries.
Yeah.
And obviously, when you were at school here in Ireland, you would have studied Irish.
Yeah.
Was it of any use to you in Spain or the UK or the USA?
Absolutely not, I have to say. I have lived abroad for most of my childhood for my father's career. And essentially, I've had so many educations through the US, through Spain, through the UK. And honestly, I have to say, it is never something that has ever crossed my mind that maybe I should look into learning or I should try to learn. Because as far as I'm aware, that there's so much more out there to try and learn through another language, or even putting your time and energy into a subject, that you do genuinely try that. I mean,
how good is your knowledge of Irish?
To be honest, absolutely shocking.
Okay, shocking, right. And do you feel you're missing out on anything?
No.
Because I have to be honest with you, my level of Irish is sadly shocking as well. But if I'm to be really honest, it is one of my regrets of my life that I don't have a better command of Irish. Don't ask me why. It's not like I miss out on conversations, but I kind of wish I did.
No, and that's understandable. But I mean, from a point of view of that, I am fluent in Spanish. I'm fluent in another language, Catalan, which is spoken in Spain, in the Catalan area, and essentially Spanish has served me more and has gotten me more through my career in terms of what I used to do and what I do now when I travel abroad. I've gotten so much further through that than what I ever would be if I was ever having to study Irish. I mean, how often do you go abroad and have to speak Irish to somebody in Spain?
Well, you don't.
Exactly.
Well, then you might be able to relate to this. This message was sent in to me from Dylan, and he says, I have just recently finished my leaving, and I did higher level Irish. And in my opinion, I found studying Irish a huge waste of time. The language is useless after school, and other languages like French and Spanish much more useful. If the choice was given to students who were in my year, whether or not to study Irish, I'd say maybe you'd get one class instead of 5, which there was. The time and effort required to get a good grade in the subject is simply not worth it. I know for certain that now I'm done with my Leaving Cert that I simply won't be using it again. And you would agree with that, Jessica, would you?
Absolutely. When I was I done my Leaving Cert in a year due to how my time fell between the education, and even me putting my time and energy into studying geography for a year, home economics, chemistry and biology geography being the extra subject instead of Irish, I done so much better in points than what I would have done had I wasted my time trying to learn and trying to catch up with Irish as a language. I mean, even now, every day in my current role, I do deal with teachers. I do deal a lot with the Irish education system. But I don't even use that. I don't even use Irish in that.
Now, Jessica, just as a complete by the way, okay, totally unrelated to this conversation, but something I'm going to be talking about after 11 o'clock, is you're somebody who is Irish but has lived abroad a lot.
Yeah.
Something we're going to be talking about in a while is, what made you homesick? What did you miss most about Ireland?
To be honest, I don't really have an answer. I suppose it's more so the homely sense. Irish abroad sometimes, they are quite, you don't get the sense of homeliness the way that you do when you come home.
So what, the friendliness of the Irish?
No. The friendliness of the Irish are abroad are fantastic, but you know the homely sense, just your home comforts of like, you know, people understanding what you're talking about. Like I remember, for example, like saying, "Oh, we had a bit of crack on a night out," and someone overhearing that and thinking that we actually had drugs on a night out, and you're going, "No, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about."
Yes.
Like in that type of sense, I missed that. You know, just the understanding of people. Whereas some people, I think, can take other people up wrong, really, abroad like that.
All right, very good. That's complete, by the way. But thanks very much for your call.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Jessica. We're talking about the Irish language, and we'll take some more calls on this. Robbie, you're on 98 FM. How are you, Robbie?
How are you, Adrian?
Robbie, your point is that the Irish language is who we are.
It's exactly who we are. It's, you know what I mean? It's part of our culture. Like,
so what, do we learn it for historical reasons then?
It's about who you are, Adrian. Like, you have to understand, we're Irish. Our number one language should be Irish. Technically, we speak a foreign language in the form of English.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah, no, I get that. But the fact is we do. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
No, of course it's not going to change. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what people are used to. But you shouldn't forget our culture. Like, what's going to be next? Change the tricolour?
No, but we don't. We learn about our culture through like history in school. We learn about the 1916 Rising and stuff like that.
Adrian, I guarantee if you got 20 millenniums on the phone, they wouldn't be able to tell you who James Connolly is. They wouldn't be able to tell you anything.
No, I would disagree. I have to say.
I don't think so. The Irish language obviously has got a lot worse over the years, and like a lot less people actually want to speak it. But why should we forget it? It's who we are. It's our national language.
Okay, nobody is saying we should forget it. But you obviously believe that by not making it a compulsory subject in for the Leaving Cert, it will be forgotten.
Of course it will be forgotten. If you don't make it a compulsory subject in the Leaving Cert, you'll have people saying, "No, I don't need to do it, forget about it." You'll have no teachers teaching Irish. You'll have no kids for the next two generations wanting to speak Irish. It'll be gone. It'll be forgotten about.
Would it though? Would it? Because I still believe, well, mind you, if you go back to that message that I read a couple of minutes ago, Dylan, who just finished his Leaving Cert, reckons that if it were no longer compulsory, instead of having 5 classes doing Irish, you'd have just 1. And that's the point you're trying to make, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's all about like how things change and like it's a different culture and all. Millennium kids, like, do you know what I mean? Like, they want to speak French because it's cool, do you know what I mean? A lot more people speak French, let's speak French. They're forgetting where they came from. Do you know what I mean? Their ancestors sacrificed so they could have their freedom, so they could be in a country called Ireland, and now they want to forget the values and the moral principles of what they've done.
And can you speak good Irish?
I can't, to be honest with you, as you said, it's one of my life regrets. Like small bits like Diag Which, Cunnis a Tatu, the usual. I'd love to speak fluent Irish. I'd love to do it.
And why don't you?
Because it wasn't taught to me.
No, but why don't you go and do it now?
To be honest with you, I didn't have the brain to understand it. I wish I did have the brain to understand it, but I didn't.
So, okay, let me just work with that for 1 second. There are many people like you who just didn't have the brain to understand it. Why force people to do it? And that's what we do. We force them to do it.
It's your language. Like I can't understand why people...
But Robbie, do you feel any less Irish because you can't speak Irish?
No, but if it was forgotten about and someone asked me, "Oh, what's your first language?" and I had to tell them, "Oh, English." And they put your
but that's a statement of fact.
National language.
But that's a statement of fact, Robbie. It is your first language.
I wish it wasn't, to be honest.
Do you not think that Ireland as a nation has benefited from being one of the few countries in Europe that has English as our first language?
No, not really, because look at the amount of...
Do you not think, like American multinationals coming into Ireland, one of the attractions is that we speak English?
No, because you have a lot... Like, you go to France, you go to Spain, there's a lot of people over there that speak English, Adrian. You can't just say, like, because like, we're the only, like...
No, but what I'm saying is, do you think Facebook and Google would have their headquarters in Dublin if our only language was Irish?
Come here, you know why they have their headquarters in Dublin?
No, I know the main way. But one of the attractions for companies like that is that we are an English-speaking country.
No, it's not. The main attraction is that they don't have to pay tax. You know that as well as I do.
And they don't have to pay much tax, yeah. All right, stay there for 1 second. Orla, you're on 98 FM. Hi, Orla.
Hi, how are things?
We were talking about how, and in fact you heard the message I read out from the fellow who's just done his Leaving Cert, thinks that he says, I know for certain now that I've done my Leaving Cert that I simply won't be using it again. Isn't he right?
Absolutely not, no. And I think we see that a lot, and people are talking about, the social uses for the language and things like the pop-up Gaeltacht, and they're going on all over the world, and that's where people pick a pub and they go and they have a few drinks off Gaeilge. And for somebody who might think, I don't have much Irish, you'll find after a couple of pints that it comes back even that bit more, and the bits that you have in school, you'll remember them. And
okay, but this comes back. Yeah, but this comes back, Orla, to that message that I played a while ago from the woman saying, "Oh, isn't it great fun when you're on holidays to be able to speak Irish because nobody knows what you're talking about?" That's a bit. It's not a good enough reason to maintain it as a compulsory language.
But it's to give people these social uses, and we see it a lot with. I don't know if you saw recently, but William Fry, actually, the legal firm, they did a video about how many of their solicitors speak Irish, and you'll see it in the private sector more and more that people need Irish, and with kind of accountants and doctors and things, you see it in Europe where there's fantastic jobs going with the language. So for us to take away that right for people in school, for us to
well, nobody is saying nobody for 1 second is suggesting we take away that right. Nobody is talking about...
Well, we are, because at 16 years of age, you don't know what you want. At 16, you don't know if you want to do Irish. You don't know where you're going to end up. I mean, how many of us did courses in college that were in a totally different field to now? So to give people that chance to keep studying Irish until they get to Leaving Cert, I think is a huge benefit. And we talk about the European languages and multi-languages. We should be focusing on being multilingual rather than monolingual, and the advantages that brings us. And the Gael School now at the moment, there's a couple around Dublin, and the ones being founded, they're actually bringing in a third language at primary school level. So when kids get to first class in a Gael School, so an Irish medium school, that art and PE and things like that are taught through French and German. So that's what we should look at.
I would agree with all of that. Stay there for a moment, because, Steve, your daughter goes to a Gael School, and you believe it should be everybody's first language.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my daughter's been going to an Irish-speaking school since the day she stepped into school. Mm-hmm. And, she's 6 now. She's completely fluent in Irish. Her mother is fluent in Irish, and all her friends are fluent in Irish. And I just think it's a shame that if you were going to take it away from a child from learning, I just think it's taken well for them being an Irish person. Like,
okay, what advantage would there be for this country if we all spoke Irish as our first language?
I mean, we should speak as a first language. I mean, you look at any other country in the world, they speak their own language first, and then English is a second language. You know what I mean? It's reversed over here. We speak English, and then maybe 8% or 10% of the countries able to speak a bit of Irish. Like, it's ridiculous. It should be enforced into children when they're in primary schools.
Well, it is, Steve.
Well, it's not really. I mean, it's...
Well, okay, yes, in the Gael School, yeah.
It's all Irish-speaking school. But the average school, it's a 40-minute class or whatever, they're not really putting effort into it. Then the government don't back it either, but the government should be backing it there as well.
All right, Steve, thanks very much indeed. Let me just squeeze in a couple of WhatsApp voice notes before we wrap this up. Roisin.
I disagree with the idea that the Irish language cannot be used outside of classrooms. Some of my favourite memories from university are from being a part of the Irish Language Society, and I attend pop-up Gaeltacht every month. There's a club in the Gaeilge on Harcourt Street, and this is just in Dublin alone. And as you know, there are huge Irish language communities all across the country, and for this reason I think Irish should be compulsory, as it's an important cornerstone of our culture.
And finally, a message from Roisin Ella, who says, keep the subject but scrap the exam.
Lads, I think that maybe keep the subject, but I don't see why there has to be an exam in it. Like, maybe kids would enjoy it more if it was a subject that they didn't actually have to take an exam in. They learn it the whole way through, and they learn it for the love of learning it, not because they're taking a one-size-fits-all exam, which I think for the other subjects isn't suitable, never mind for the Irish language, which they don't have to use, in their day-to-day life. I think there's enough pressure on them and enough subjects already. Anyways, that's just what I was thinking.
It's 11 o'clock in Dublin City and County. Good morning. This is Adrian Kennedy. You're with 98FM's Dublin Talks. And Trish is here with Tuesday's top headlines.
Thanks, Adrian. The Supreme Court will hear an appeal by the state against a High Court ruling in favour of convicted murderer Graham Dwyer in December. The High Court ruling, which concerns the use of mobile phone data at his trial, is part of Graham Dwyer's efforts to overturn his conviction for the murder of Elaine O'Hara. The Crime Victims Helpline reported a 52% increase in calls in a 4-year period. Its annual review for last year shows it received almost 4,500 contacts from people looking for support and information, with over 4 in 10 of the contacts coming from Dublin. The most common crimes experienced were assault at 27%, followed by harassment and burglary. Gardaí seized 2 loaded guns during a search of a car in Coolock early this morning as part of an investigation into organised crime gangs. 2 men aged in their 30s were arrested in the Kilmore area after the revolver and pistol were recovered. And car drivers who use Dublin City via Stony Batter will face a diversion under new Bus Connects plans. Through traffic will be stopped on parts of Prussia Street and Manor Street, with diversions via Ogram Street and Infirmary Road. And now you're up to date on 98.
98FM's Dublin Talks. Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy.
Good morning. It is Tuesday. This is Adrian Kennedy. This is 98FM's Dublin Talks. Just as a final little footnote on that conversation about the Irish language, would you? We ran a Dublin Talks Twitter poll, which is still open, by the way, and will be open for the remainder of the day on our Twitter, which is at Dublin Talks 98FM. And the question we asked was, would you like to see Irish become an optional subject for the Leaving Cert? And 64% said yes, which would make you worry a little bit about what that could do to the language if it becomes an optional, if that many people want it to be an optional Leaving Cert subject. Anyway, 64% said yes, 38% saying, or 36% saying no. And if you want to vote on that, you can. That will be open for the rest of the day. Our Twitter is at Dublin Talks 98FM. Now, next on the programme, and it's something I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, about living abroad. Now, if you are somebody who is Irish and listening to us right now at some far-flung corner of the planet, what is it that you miss about home? You can text or WhatsApp me right now from anywhere in the world on 0877 98 98 98. 0877 98 98 98. But also, if you are living here in Ireland and you're from a different country, what do you miss about home? It's easy for us Irish to talk about what we miss when we're away, but I'd be very curious to know what you, if you are from a different country living here in Ireland, what do you miss most about your home country? Call me now on 6797 981. Text, WhatsApp, or send a WhatsApp voice note to 0877 98 98 98. Figures we were reading today show that just under half, 48% to be precise, of people who move to another country end up moving back home due to homesickness. That's their primary reason for not staying in the country that they move to. Homesickness. They miss certain things, and we want to find out what you missed most or miss most while living abroad. And as I said, as a foreign national living here in Ireland, what do you miss most about living abroad? Now, a couple of minutes ago, we asked that exact question to a lady called Jessica, who was on the show a while ago, and here's what she said.
Like Irish abroad sometimes, like they are quite, like, you know, you don't get the sense of homeliness the way that you do when you come home.
So what, the friendliness of the Irish?
No. The friendliness of the Irish are abroad are fantastic, but you know, the homely sense, just your home comfort of, like, you know, people understanding what you're talking about. Like I remember, for example, like saying, oh, we had a bit of crack on a night out, and someone overhearing that and thinking that we actually had drugs.
We actually had drugs, is what she actually went on to say. So that was what she missed. The banter between Irish people, and being able to say things like, oh, we had a great bit of crack. and you don't mean cocaine when you say that, you mean a bit of fun. But a foreigner wouldn't get that if you're in another country. Call me now on 6797 981. Text, WhatsApp, or send a WhatsApp voice note to 0877 98 98 98. And if you are Irish listening to us right now from some far-flung corner of the world, send us a WhatsApp note to 0877 98 98 98 and let us know what it is that you miss most about Ireland being abroad as you are. Okay? So, plus 353 877 98 98 98. Paul, you're on 98 FM. How are you, Paul?
How are you, Aaron?
Good, Paul. What did you want to say?
Grand. I just missed the batch bread when I was away and the food, normal food.
What's normal food?
Like, stew and coddle and all that sort of stuff. You don't get that when you're away.
Right, and where are you living?
Tenerife. I was there for 6 months.
For 6 months, right.
Yeah.
And even though they have all sorts of stuff in Tenerife, you missed batch bread because, bimbo bread just doesn't cut the mustard, sure it doesn't.
No.
And could you not have made a stew?
Yeah, you could have, but sure. I don't know. You can't make it like your ma does.
Well, no. When you're living down the road from your ma, you can't make it like your ma does, in fairness. But
no, that's true. You can go up to her, though.
Okay, so it was batch bread that you missed.
Yeah, and the food and your family.
And, when you're away, is communicating with your family on FaceTime or whatever not the same thing, no?
No, not really, no. You just go to your ma's on your way home from work for a cup of tea or whatever.
Right, okay. So, you miss family and you can't replicate that online. This message just came into us a moment ago from Neve. Living in the Netherlands for almost 14 years, I miss Irish people the most. Which is very interesting, and I'd love to know what that's all about. What does that even mean? I miss Irish people the most. I'm sure you meet some Irish people in the Netherlands, Neve. So what do you mean by that? I miss Irish people the most. Call me right now on 6797 981. Text, WhatsApp, or send a WhatsApp voice note to 0877 98 98 98. And we're trying to find out what it is that you miss. If you're living abroad right now, what do you miss living abroad? And if you're a foreigner living here in Ireland, what do you miss about your home country? Sorry, Neve's just gotten back to me there, and she says, I think people who live in Ireland take each other for granted. The majority of Irish people are so lovely and friendly, and that makes the difference when you're living abroad. And she's living, as I said, in the Netherlands for 14 years. And as I said, I want to hear from foreign nationals living here in Ireland. What do you miss about your home country? Chris, you were living in Perth. How long did you live in Perth?
Yeah, how you going? I was living in Perth for 7 years.
For 7 years, okay. And that's not a Perth accent, it's not a Dublin accent. Where's that accent from?
I'm from Liverpool.
You're from Liverpool. And are you living here in Dublin now?
I am, yeah. I met a Dublin girl, a fella girl out there, and ended up back in Dublin. And yeah,
it's always the way. It's always the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you were in Perth, was it Liverpool that you missed, or what was it?
I obviously missed family, and I missed the football and stuff like that. But I just missed the friendly nature of people. Like, as that girl said earlier on, they don't get your sense of humour. You walk into a shop, they don't say hello. You can't have a joke, and I missed that. I missed the banter, really.
And when you came back, because obviously being from Liverpool, sure, you may as well be Irish. I mean, it's the most Irish city in England. But so you kind of get us Irish as well, do you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, they say in Liverpool, it's County Liverpool.
It is. Yeah. So living here now that you're based in Dublin, what do you miss about Liverpool?
It's just family, really. But it's a half an hour flight now, so I don't really miss much about Liverpool now.
And sure, it's only across the water. Do you go home much?
Yeah, I do. I go home quite regularly with work as well. Yeah.
No, right. So it's not but it's certainly not as far away as Perth.
No.
All right, good to talk to you, Chris. Thanks very much indeed. Mark sent us this WhatsApp voice note on 0877 98 98 98 about what he missed.
I lived away. One thing I miss was breakfast rolls.
Breakfast rolls? Because you can try and replicate a breakfast roll in any part of the world, and it's never going to be the same. It's just not. I'm sorry, it's not even the same in England. And Rebecca is originally from Malawi, and this is what she misses about Malawi in Africa.
Hello, it's Rebecca here. I am from Malawi, Africa. I miss most about just getting up without checking what the weather will be like, because I know what the weather would be like almost every day. So, yeah.
And it's true. If you're from somewhere like Malawi, you're used to the weather being the exact same every day of the week. Where here, the first thing a lot of us do when we wake up in the morning is you look at your weather app and see, well, do I have to wear a rain jacket or bring an umbrella with me today? Or am I wearing a short sleeve shirt? Because you just don't know what the weather is going to be like. But in Malawi, it's obviously the same every single day of the week. Now, Anya, you're on 98 FM. Hi, Anya.
Hello.
Now, Anya, you lived in Chicago.
Yeah, I did.
How long did you live there for?
About 10 years.
Oh, right. Okay, that's a fair chunk of time.
Yeah.
And, they speak English in Chicago, and there's a lot of Irish in Chicago, but it just wasn't home, was it not?
No, very different. The people are really different in America.
So what did you miss?
The food, so much. Angel Delight and crunchies and digestives, all of that.
Right, Angel Delight. I've never heard anybody who missed Angel Delight when they were away, but...
I know, it's what I ate my whole childhood.
Yeah, no, I have to say I love Angel Delight. You've just given me a go for it now. I'm going to have to get some of that on the way home.
Right.
But I've never heard it being top of the list of things that you miss when you're away. And when you were over there, living in Chicago for 10 years, I'm always curious to know whether you felt like a foreign national when you were living in Chicago, or did you get used to the place?
So, I guess you get used to it a bit, but I did feel a bit foreign, because, over there, be like, oh, Anya, you're the most Irish person I've ever met, by your name and everything.
Yeah.
And then I come here, and they're like, oh, no, you're not Irish. You're really American.
Yeah, well, I was about to ask, did you only get that accent in the 10 years you were there?
Yeah, I had an Irish accent when I was a kid, and then went American, and let's hope it goes back, I suppose.
Right, how long are you home?
I moved here a year ago.
You moved back here a year ago. Right, and where are you originally from?
My family's from Drogheda, Louth. I've always lived in Dublin, though.
Right, you've always lived in Dublin. Okay, so you certainly don't have... Well, you don't really want to develop a Drogheda accent now, in fairness. But, okay, but so in that 10 years, you developed that accent?
Yeah. Good old Chicago.
Because I can't hear any Irish in you.
Yeah.
Right, so Angel Delight is what you missed most when you were there.
Definitely.
All right, good to talk to you, Anya. Thanks very much indeed.
You too.
Now, Caroline, you retired to Portugal. You there,
Yes,
Caroline?
I did.
Okay, you retired to Portugal with Tony.
Yes.
And are you there
in
now?
January.
Okay, are you there now?
Yes.
Oh, you're there now. Right, very good. And in fact, the great thing about being there is you didn't even have to change your phone number because you can roam on your own number. But anyway, so you're in Portugal.
Exactly.
You're in Portugal since January. And how's it going, firstly?
Absolutely amazing. The weather is fantastic. Sitting on the balcony talking to you now.
Oh, isn't that lovely? What part of Portugal are you in?
We're in Portimao.
Where's that now?
It's the Algarve.
Okay, in the Algarve, right. Now, what is it in the 6 months you've been there that you miss most about here?
Well, besides family and friends and my children, it's really the batch bread, the white pudding,
right?
Sausages, bacon.
So it's all food things, really?
also, and especially the broadcasters. We listen to you yourselves every morning.
Oh, very good. That's nice to hear, Caroline. Thanks very much. And we keep you in touch with what's going on in Dublin every day. And where are you from?
Sure do.
Where are you from?
Tala.
Oh, from Tala. All right, very good. Now, why did you decide to retire to Portugal?
The main reason was the sun.
You just love it, do you?
They are, and they are beautiful, beautiful people.
Yeah,
Portuguese are beautiful.
Yeah, the
people.
Portuguese are nice people, I have to say, in general. But it's a big move. It's a big decision to up sticks and leave.
It is, but I mean, when your children are reared, it's kind of easier.
Yeah.
And we bought a big enough place that when they come over on holidays, it's only going to cost them their airfare.
And do you get bored?
No.
How do you occupy yourself?
What I do here is what I do at home, only for I'm doing it in the sun.
Like what?
Like we go out for a walk. We are at the moment doing our place up because we're only after buying here. So we've loads and loads to do. There's amazing beaches and boardwalks.
Right, okay. So you're living the sort of life you would have been living here, except you've got the sun and you can be outdoors an awful lot more.
Yeah, exactly.
All
exactly. Right. Because we love walking and swimming and all things like that.
Well, it's great that the world is so small that you can listen to us every day here at 98FM, and thanks very much.
Sure is.
Thanks very much for listening in, Caroline. And the best of luck.
Okay, thank you.
I'll pop over. I'll pop into you when I'm over in the Algarve again.
You sure do.
Thanks very much indeed.
Okay.
Where am I going now? I'm going to Imelda. You're on 98FM. Hi, Imelda.
Hi.
Now, Imelda, originally from Kenya.
Yes.
Okay. And we heard the message from a lady a couple of minutes ago from Malawi, and the one thing she misses is not being able to predict that the weather is going to be, sunny tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after. Yeah. And I should imagine Kenya is fairly similar. What is the one thing that you miss most? What makes you homesick for Kenya?
Other than family, I miss the goat meat barbecue.
Oh, it's like the local cuisine?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what you... And can you not get any kind of... Is there no shops or whatever that would do African-style food, no?
It's not. It's the goat meat.
Oh, goat meat?
Barbecued goat meat.
Oh.
That's a delicacy, and Irish don't eat goat meat.
No, not really. It's not really a big thing. No, actually, I don't know anybody who's ever eaten goat meat. But that's a thing there, and barbecued goat meat, you really miss.
I miss that, yeah.
Okay, good to talk to you, Imelda. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
I'm sure you don't miss. I'm sure you also miss the weather. You have to.
Yes and no. I tell you, it's very warm there.
Right, it's not it's not very warm here, except for maybe 2 days.
But it's warm here since June. It's been warm.
No, it has been warm, I have to say, but it's not. It's certainly not Kenya warm.
No. It's country back. No.
All right, good to talk to you, Imelda. Thanks very much indeed. And finally, Laura. Laura, where are you originally from?
Milltown in Dublin.
Now, from Milltown, okay. And you are living in Surrey?
In England, yeah.
How long are you there?
Oh, God, about 20, 21 years.
Oh, really? You're there that long?
Yeah.
And how did you move over in the first place? How did you end up there in the first place?
I went to art college in Ballyfermot.
Right.
And then I met someone who was from England, and then I just moved back over there with him.
Okay. And you're there ever since. So what is it that you miss most about Ireland?
I miss just walking out of my parents' house and just seeing Dublin mountains, and then it's like a 10-minute drive up to the mountains and a 10-minute drive to Sandymount Beach.
Yeah, I mean, we're sandwiched between the mountains and the sea, which is lovely, yeah.
Yeah, and then the walk along the Dodder is just brilliant. I miss it so much. And of course, my family.
And of course, your family. And do you get to come home often?
I just come home about twice a year.
Right.
Brings a tear to my eye when I see Ireland coming in on the plane.
And because there is something about flying into Dublin. Okay, the first thing you notice is it's grey and miserable. That's normally what we witness flying into Dublin. But there's that familiar feeling when you're flying in over Dublin Bay or over Howth or whatever, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah.
It's like home.
Yeah, it really is. Laura, good to talk to you. Do you ever think you'd move back home?
Oh no, sure. I'm married now to an Englishman, so I'm sort of here now.
You're stuck.
Life is here. I am.
All right. Good to talk to you, Laura. Thanks very much indeed. Apparently, the Berlin D2... Is the Berlin in D2 or is it called the Berlin D2? Does anybody know? It's called Berlin D2. Do a goat curry on a Sunday for that lady Imelda there a couple of minutes ago. So there you are, Imelda. The Berlin D2. Google them. They do a goat curry on a Sunday. Pavel sent me this message. He says, I'm Polish. 15 years living in Ireland, and there are a few bad apples, but mostly kind and lovely, chatty Irish people is what I love about Ireland. In Poland, they are not always that open and kind, especially the older generation. But what I miss from Poland is choosing different kinds of food in shops. Not only Aldi or Lidl, says Pavel. A friend of mine, Tando, who listens to us regularly, he's from Dublin, he's living in Switzerland the last while, and he says, the thing that I miss most is Irish nightlife. It is way better than the Swiss party. In other words, the Swiss aren't great partiers, is really what he's saying. And finally, Greg is in Japan, and I think Greg listens to us regularly, and here's what Greg in Japan misses most about Ireland.
Greg here in Hiroshima. I've been living here since 2002. What do I miss most? Long Irish summers, Sunday roasts, and definitely banter. Obviously Japanese is a very different language to English. But love it out here. Won't be coming home.
Oh, right, okay, that says it all. And finally, I'm living in London the last 12 years. I miss going down the beach and getting a 99 ice cream. Also miss foods like batch bread, King Crisps, Club Orange, a good curry sauce, a good Irish fry, and going to the deli to get a roll made up. I miss my family too, heading home this afternoon for some home comforts, says Emma. And finally, this message. After 20 years in Surrey, how did she end up listening to you guys? It's a good question, but the programme is called Dublin Talks. It's on every morning from 10 to 12. And if you have family and friends living abroad, tell them to tune in. Because we keep Dubliners in touch with Dublin life, and we can keep Irish people, Dubliners living abroad, in touch with Irish life. They can find us on, they can get the 98FM app, they can get the Irish Radio Player app, they can get the Go Loud app, and it's on there, and you can listen to us anywhere around the world. Anyway, there you go. Thanks very much indeed for all of your calls. This is 98FM's Dublin Talks. Here is a conversation with a difference that I want to have with you after the break, and it's something that we've never really touched on before, but it's something that every family is affected by. Here is a message from a lady called... where's the name? I can't see it there. But anyway, I'll read it to... it's a man. It's a man called John. And John sent us this through our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Adrian K and Jeremy D. And here's what John says. I want to change my name to John if you discuss this. Can you talk about my sister being a selfish and uncaring bitch? And whatever other words you can think of. 18 months ago, our dear mother passed away from cancer. She's buried at Dardistown Cemetery. And do you know that bar the day of the burial at her funeral, my sister has not been to the grave since? How can she behave this way and be so cold? I go up once a month to talk to my mum and clean up the grave. I've asked my sister why she won't go, and her answer is, why? Graveyards are not nice places to visit. This attitude has put a huge strain in our relationship, if I'm to be honest. I don't think I can forgive her for not even visiting once. Can you discuss this and try to make her see that to not visit a family member's grave is such an insult? Now, as I said, it's a topic that we've never really touched on before, which is strange because it's something that every single one of us can relate to. We all have a loved one that has sadly passed away and buried in a graveyard. But do you visit? And is it disrespectful not to visit, especially when it's somebody as close as your mother? Call me right now on 6797 981. Text, WhatsApp, or send a WhatsApp voice note to 0877 98 98 98. We're back in just a second.
Dublin Talks with Buy Local. Because smarter shopping supports us all. 98 FM.
Tuesday morning with Adrian Kennedy, and a message that raises an issue that we've never talked about before, and it is from a guy who wants to be called John. And by the way, if you want, if you want to get in contact with us, very easy. You can throw us an email to Dublin Talks, all one word, at 98fm.com. Dublin Talks at 98fm.com, or send a private message through our Facebook page. And if you haven't already clicked like on our Facebook page, please do. It is facebook.com/Adrian K and Jeremy D. Facebook.com/Adrian K and Jeremy D. And if you haven't already clicked like on our page, please do. 104,000 other people have, so you may as well join in. Facebook.com/Adrian K and Jeremy D. And as I said, when you have clicked like on our page, you can send us a private message about anything you might want to talk about. That's what John did. And he says, can you talk about my sister being a selfish, uncaring bitch? And whatever other word you can think of. 18 months ago, our mam passed away from cancer. She's buried at Dardistown Cemetery. But do you know that bar the burial on the day of her funeral, my sister has not been to the grave since? How can she behave this way and be so cold? I go up once a month to talk to my mam and clean up the grave. I've asked my sister why she won't go, and her answer is, why? Graveyards are not places to visit, she says. This attitude has put a huge strain in our relationship, if I'm to be honest. I don't think I can forgive her for not even visiting once. Can you discuss this and try to make her see that to not visit a family member's grave is such an insult? Is it such an insult? As I said, it's a conversation we can all relate to, because I don't think there's anybody listening now that doesn't have somebody fairly close to them buried in a graveyard. Do you visit? Danielle, you're on 98 FM. How are you, Danielle?
Hi, how are you?
Now tell me about your granddad.
My granddad died almost 10 years ago.
Right.
And I was so close to him. I grew up with him. He raised me like his own.
Mm-hmm.
And since he has died, twice I've been to his grave, and I find it really, really difficult to go. I don't think it's disrespectful. I think you don't need to go to a graveyard to remember somebody.
Now,
I feel that.
Okay, but this guy, John, or whatever his name is, feels very strongly about it, very annoyed with his sister. It's more recent in that it was 18 months ago. But you find it very difficult visiting your granddad's grave.
Yeah.
Why?
In the first, I'd say 18 months, I did not go to my granddad's grave. I stood there on the day of the burial, I looked down, and that's what I saw. I saw a big black hole, and that was, in my head, that was where my granddad was going. And I found it really difficult.
And that's your memory, is it?
Yes, that's my memory, and I don't want to remember my granddad like that.
Mm.
And my granddad always said to me before he died that you don't need to go to a graveyard to remember anybody. And that actually makes so much more sense now.
Oh, he actually said that to you?
He actually said that to me, because I used to question him on why he didn't go to visit his parents' grave, because I went all the time. And he was like, I don't need to go to a graveyard to remember somebody.
So sorry, you used to visit his parents' grave?
Parents, yeah, out in Glasnevin, the other one over this outside, yeah.
And how was that easier for you?
Probably because I didn't know them. I used to go out of respect, because they were my great grandparents.
Right, but you didn't know them. You knew of them, but that was it.
I knew of them, yeah, and I used to go and just go and clean the grave and come back. But as soon as my granddad died, I found it really difficult, and I've lost family members since, and like that, I don't go to their graves because I don't want to remember them in a box in a grave. I want to remember them the way when they were with me. And that's the way I think that girl is obviously feeling, is that she doesn't need to go to a graveyard to remember her mother.
Mm. But she obviously doesn't. Her answer to her brother was, why? Graveyards are not nice places to visit.
And you know what, I think there is lovely graveyards out there, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to your own loved ones and how you grieve, people just need to leave you and let you do your own thing. Because I did have arguments with my own mother about not going to visit my granddad's grave. And in the end, I had to sit her down and go, do you know what, this is the way I have to do it, you have to just leave me. And in the end, she did. I explained to her why I was feeling the way I was feeling. Like, I don't want to go, I don't need to go there to remember him.
And let me ask you, do you, on the couple of occasions in the last 10 years that you have visited, you found it very upsetting, did you?
Very upsetting. Very. The one that really sticks out for me was the day after I got married. I went with my newly husband, and he had to carry me out of the graveyard because I was crying so much. Because all I saw when I got there was a headstone with his face on it. I couldn't have him with me, and then every time I looked down, I seen that black hole again.
Oh, right.
And that it's not nice for anybody. And I just don't think that guy John he actually needs to have an honest conversation with Sister rather than just asking the question. Ask her how she's feeling. She's obviously grieving.
And this is why we're having this exact conversation today, because it is something that, as I said, an awful lot of us can relate to. An awful lot of us have somebody close buried in a graveyard. Well, in fact, here's an interesting twist on this, because Noelle, you believe that it's actually selfish to get buried. Why?
Hi, Adrian. Yes, I do. I think that you're living with family with, almost a compulsion to visit a spot and make sure it's tended to and looks nice. And, there's this competition almost at cemeteries for, headstones and flowers and this, that and the other. And not everybody likes to visit graves. I don't. I wouldn't tend to any grave,
Well, even if somebody very close to you?
Well, both my parents, no. I never have been, no.
You've never visited your parents' grave?
No.
Bar, I assume, the funeral?
The funeral, and that's it.
Okay, so you couldn't tell me what state their grave is in because you've not been there?
No, I don't know. I don't really care, to be honest with you, Adrian, because there's another side to this debate in that perhaps, is it John, what's his name?
John.
Maybe his sister didn't have a great relationship with the mother and is relieved that she's gone.
Well, no, that's not been said at all. But let me ask you, you said at the start that it's a bit selfish to get buried. What, you think we should all be cremated, do you?
Well, I think, it makes life a lot easier for those left behind to just cremate someone and throw their ashes out into wherever, and that's it. Memories are not in a plot in a cemetery, or a headstone.
Well, in fact, if anything, from what Danielle said, bad memories are in a graveyard because your last memory of that person is going down into the hole in the ground.
Absolutely. And I mean, excuse me, Adrian, but why would you leave your family to be tormented with, having to revisit the last place where they, saw you going into the ground, and they're left kind of, living that life of grief and feeling obliged to grieve almost, instead of letting them get on with their life and remember you in their own way. It is a selfish thing to do.
So you think we should all be cremated, do you?
Absolutely, everyone, yeah.
So that those left behind aren't obliged to grieve by your graveside?
Yes, of course, Adrian. And, it's much more economical to cremate a person anyway. If I had my way, my parents would have been cremated,
But it wasn't their wish, obviously.
There was never a wish as such, It's just, I think it's an Irish thing. It's assumed everyone will be buried, with this kind of ceremony, pomp and ceremony with it.
Danielle, let me go back to you for a second. What do you say to that? That it's a bit selfish to get buried, that we should all be cremated and then people don't feel any obligation to go and visit a graveyard?
I don't agree with that. It's selfish because I have family who've been cremated and are actually in a grave. Their ashes have been buried in a grave. I think I do think it's down to personal preference. I don't think it's selfish of the person who has passed away to be buried because that's their wish.
All right,
And
do me a favour, and both of you, stay there for 1 second. 6797 981 is our telephone number. Text, WhatsApp, or send a WhatsApp voice note to 0877 98 98 98. And what do you make to what Noelle has just said, that it is a bit selfish of people to get buried, where family are left obliged to grieve, and in that there's somewhere that they have to visit, they have to tend to, they have to clean the headstone, and all of that. JJ sent us this WhatsApp voice note.
Good morning, Adrian. How you doing? JD here. About the grave, it's not an insult. I know many people that can't go up. I find it hard myself. I lost my father 2 years ago, and I go up to the grave, and it's actually heartbreaking walking away, leaving him there. I think sometimes I'm leaving him in the field. It's just people are so different. It's not the fact that she probably doesn't want to go up. It's probably she finds it hard. You know, everyone is different, and like I'd pity her more than be giving out about her. In fairness, I know another person, a friend of mine. Since his mother died, he won't go up because it's the exact same thing. He just can't bear leaving them there, and just it's just the way people are. So that's my end of it, lads. Good luck.
Okay, and another WhatsApp voice note from Roisin.
I think that's really grief is such a personal thing. Like, I think the fact the sister, you know, it's not a competition. She doesn't go to the grave. That doesn't mean she doesn't talk to her mother every day in her own way, or miss her mother just as much as her brother does. You know, I don't think it's as black and white as that. And I hope he can get over that anger, because I'm sure that out of respect to his mother, the last thing she'd want is to see two of her kids, you know, not being able to pull together and help each other through something like that. That's what I'd want anyway.
Dublin Talks with Buy Local, because smarter shopping supports us all. 98FM.
Now, John, as I said to you, sent us a message to our Facebook page, and he says, can you talk about my sister being a selfish bitch and uncaring and whatever other word you can think of? 18 months ago, our mam died from cancer. She's buried in Dardistown. And you know that bar the burial on the day of her funeral, my sister has not been to the grave since. How can she behave this way and be so cold? I go up at least once a month to talk to my mam and clean up the grave. I've asked my sister why she won't go, and her answer is, why? Graveyards are not places to visit, she says. This attitude has put a strain in our relationship, if I'm to be honest. I don't think I can forgive her for not visiting even once. Can you discuss this and try to make her see that to not visit a family member's grave is such an insult? Is it, though? Do you visit a loved one's grave, particularly somebody close to you? And if not, why not? Call me now on 6797 981. Text, WhatsApp, or send a WhatsApp voice note to 0877 98 98 98. Now, Chloe, you're on 98FM. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. What did you want to say on this?
Well, I think everybody grieves differently. When my dad died 10 years ago, I started off going to the grave every week, but I don't go as often now. But I don't think you need to go to the grave to visit somebody close. They're always around you. You can talk to them anywhere. And I think some people, as Danielle said, some people find it very hard to go actually and look at somebody, look at a grave, and think of them in the box, in the grave. They want to remember them the way they were in life.
Yeah, and I understand that. And, you know, it is sad. And listening to that lady a couple of minutes ago, it's kind of sad that when she goes to the graveyard, all she can see is the box being lowered into the ground. That's, you know, it immediately comes back to her, her granddad's coffin being lowered into the ground. But is it not?
That does eventually fade in time. You do stop remembering the box going in. You remember the person. When you do go to visit the grave, as Noelle said, now, first of all, you can't just scatter ashes anywhere. It's not legally. My best friend died 2 years ago, and her ashes were buried in a grave, and I have to go to visit the grave now. I don't go as often as I did when she first died, but now, you know, she's not very far away, even though I don't visit as often, you know, as I did.
Right. Now, in terms of your point is that basically everybody grieves differently.
Mm-hmm.
But Is it not a bit odd not to visit your mother's grave, especially, ever?
I would think you would visit at some stage. I'd say that John's sister will eventually visit, but maybe she just can't bring herself to visit it at the moment. Maybe that's the stage of grief she's at. I know if my mother was dead, I would have visited. Like my dad, I still visit my dad's grave, and I always will.
How often?
I haven't been there in a couple of months, but we do try to go. I try to go like Father's Day, his birthday, Christmas, Easter, my birthday. It doesn't always work out that way, but...
And let me ask you, because imagine this lady is listening. Why do you go on those days? What's the point? That might seem like an odd question.
My dad always liked celebrating events, and those particular events were big for him. So it's just my personal thing. I feel closer to him on those particular days, even though I know I can look at his picture at home or I can talk to him anywhere. But on those particular days, I'd like to go. No, it doesn't always work out that I get there, depending what's going on in my life on that particular day.
And as a matter of interest, would you feel guilty if you didn't get there?
No, because I know Dad would understand, and I could still chat to him even if I'm not at the physical grave, because it's only his body that's there. It's not him there, if you know what I mean. But I do make an effort.
Just on that point, Mal sent me this message a second ago, and he says, "A grave means nothing to me. I don't go to visit them at all. To me, once a person dies, that's it, they're gone. That guy needs to get over himself and respect the way his sister deals with death." And you're kind of the same. Your dad's grave is just a place to remember him, is it?
It is, but at the same time, I wouldn't say to John, get over himself. I can understand how he feels. I think he thinks by never having visited in a year and a half that his sister is being disrespectful to their mother's memory. No, I wouldn't say you've been disrespectful to somebody's memory just by not visiting a grave. If you're disrespectful to somebody's memory, you're bad mouthing them, and you're not talking nicely about them, you're not remembering them with love or affection. But a grave, I wouldn't say she's been disrespectful. It's just her way of grieving. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know the lady, but I do think they need to sit down and talk about their feelings. But maybe it's still too early days for them.
Yeah, maybe he's just annoyed that he's the one that keeps tending the grave and keeps it in good nick.
Well, I do think he does have responsibility in that end. Like if the grave needs to be looked after. I mean, I know with Dad's grave, we all kind of help out each other, and if we need to put more stones on it, or we say, right, okay, which one of us is doing it this time? You know. Yeah,
but if this lady's never been, then she's never done any of that.
No, and that's hard on John. I mean, I see his point that way, but I wouldn't say it's disrespectful. She does need to help with the upkeep and the care of it. But that I would agree with him in that aspect. But at the same time, maybe she doesn't. Maybe he needs to sit down and have a conversation and say, look, maybe she'll say, look, I'll contribute financially. That's okay. That's her way of coping. 18 months is still
actually, just on the point of tending a grave and keeping it in good nick. Noelle, you mentioned that your parents passed away 15 years ago. You've never been to their grave.
No.
Have you any idea what state the grave is in?
No, I've no idea, Adrian. And that's my whole point, that not everyone grieves in the same way. It is not this duty to still love somebody or to ever have loved them. And just because they're a parent doesn't mean that, everyone automatically loved them and grieves. I'm not suggesting that Laura, John's sister, didn't have a good relationship with her mother. I'm just suggesting that can be a possibility why some people don't visit graves, that they just simply didn't love the person. Well, it doesn't matter if it's a parent. It's perfectly acceptable to not love a parent if you don't.
Okay, but there's nothing to suggest from that message that she didn't love her mother or anything of the sort.
No suggestion, no.
No, but with regard to your parents and their grave, you've never been there, and by the sounds of it, couldn't care less what state the grave is in.
Not at all. No, it's a piece of ground. Do you know what I mean? I don't make that connection, and I don't feel that obligation.
Okay, stay there for a second. Darren, you think it's a disgrace if people don't visit the graves of their loved ones. Why?
I do indeed, Adrian. I mean, at the end of the day, it's either your parents, your sisters, brothers, maybe close family, friends. I think, like, you know, if your parents have raised you through your life, why should you go and visit them if they're passed away? I mean, at the end of the day, if you were alive, would you go and visit them if you were alive? I'm sure you would.
Yeah, but, okay, some people find it very upsetting. You heard the lady visiting her granddad's grave. The day after her wedding, she had to be carried out of the place because she found it just too upsetting. So for some people, they deal with grief differently.
Yeah, I can understand that, Adrian, but still have to go and visit the grave. I mean, when I go to my parents' grave and I walk past some of the graves that are there and they're just, you know, they're left neglected. And you just say, like, you know, maybe they haven't got any relatives still around that can come and visit the grave, but you just see them being...
But more often than not, you probably feel sorry for them that their grave isn't being looked after.
Yeah, you know, like that there's nobody there to look after, you know.
And when you hear Noelle, who has never visited her parents' grave in 15 years, what do you think?
Well, I think that's shameful, you know. I mean, our parents, like, you know, come on, your parents are your parents after all. You've raised you, brought you into the world, and not to go and visit them. I mean, I'd go down to the grave at least once a week to visit my parents now, you know.
Well, Noelle, it's shameful. There's a guy who visits every week.
Well, you know, it's just because he's caught up in that ridiculous sense of duty to a corpse, that's his own choice. I am not. He didn't know my parents. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know our relationship. And it's a fact that not all parents are loving, you know, Mills and Boon's family situation.
Okay, but why? Did you have a falling out with them?
They were nasty people. Do you know? They were nasty.
Right,
I didn't like them. I don't feel love there. So why would I feel obligated? And, you know, there's this Irish thing of, you know, we're not allowed to speak ill of the dead. It's perfectly acceptable to speak ill of the dead when the dead were ill.
Right, okay, fair enough. Liz, you're on 98FM. Hi, Liz.
Hey, Adrian.
Liz, your point is each to their own.
Yeah, like your man, our brother should really just pop on, your man John, seriously. Just because he likes to go to the grave and talk to his mother that way, doesn't mean she has to. You know, if you're to believe in sort of...
But listening to that last caller, he believes that he visits his parents' grave once a week, and we have a duty to do that.
No, I don't see it as a duty. I really don't. I think, as I said, each to their own. Their mother is only 18 months dead. The girl might not want her. She might not like her. As she said, a graveyard is not a nice place to visit.
Yeah, and in fact,
you know what I mean? Like, she can talk to her mother anywhere.
Somebody just texted in a second ago, in fact it was Kelly, and she said, I personally find graveyards cold, depressing and sad and cannot physically go to them even to visit my loved ones. Why must we remember a loved one whilst only in the last stage of their life cycle? My baby was cremated and having her ashes in a beautiful oak box in our happy home surrounded by photos of her loved ones filled with the warmth and comfort of a family brings much more comfort. Each to their own, but why doesn't our culture celebrate life rather than be sad forever? And a message from Jordan. I can understand where that man is coming from, but unfortunately you can't make someone grieve the way you want them to. Maybe there's some other reason that she just can't and just doesn't want to tell you. The more pressure you put on, the more she won't do it. Or maybe she feels like she doesn't need to go to the graveyard to remember her mother. Maybe she does it in her own way. And finally, a WhatsApp voice note from Morris.
Hi Adrian, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm just, my mother has passed 25 years. She raised 10 of us. I go out with respect. I go and pay respects to the last resting place of my mother's physical body. I know she's gone to heaven because of the good Catholic mother that she was. And if you don't get anything from it, well and good. I put flowers there. My dad is there with her, and my brother has recently gone in. He passed away when he was 65, an ex-Irish Army soldier. Lisa, drop the posh accent, will you, for God's sake? Cheers, Adrian Morris.
All right, Morris, thanks very much indeed for your message. And thank you all of you for your calls. Interesting conversation, one we've never had before, and one we can all relate to. That's it from us for today. As I mentioned to you earlier on, if you want to get in contact with us for anything for tomorrow's show, send us an email right now to dublintalks@98fm.com. dublintalks@98fm.com. You can send us a private message through our Facebook page, facebook.com/Adrian K and Jeremy D. Now, have a great Tuesday. We're back with you again tomorrow morning at 10. Barry Dunn is live from Dundrum Town Centre for the afternoon. And in the next hour, he's got some great music lined up like these.
I love it when you call me señorita. I love it, baby. I love it, baby. You and me could write a bed on my
Dublin Talks with Buy Local. Because smarter shopping supports us all. 98 FM.